Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you can hear us from. We are joined by the people from Movement for African Emancipation, which is a budding Pan-Africanist socialist group in Nigeria, which was formed to build consciousness, do organizational work, and push the revolutionary agenda in Nigeria and liaise with people in the diaspora and all over Africa, wherever we've got revolutionary work going on. Just recently, they launched the Baba Omojola Socialist and Pan-Africanist Library. It's a memorial library in honor of Baba Omojola, which they're going to be telling us about very soon. We've got Comrade Fatai here, Baba Sango here. So we're going to be talking to them about this and also exploring what might be the possible benefits and, the actions that we might leverage upon with this library. So we are happy to have you guys here on the podcast to talk to us about this initiative. First and foremost, if you can tell us about the organization Movement for African Emancipation, just briefly, so that our audience can know and be able to connect with the organization and, maybe do some work.
Thank you for having us. I'm Comrade Sango. Yeah, just briefly about Movement for African Emancipation. We are a revolutionary Pan-Africanist organization, which was launched in 2019. Our focus, is basically mainly around political education and raising consciousness of those who are involved in struggle against the system that is oppressing them, the imperialist system, and we believe that people getting more awareness about what is the reasons for their oppression and how they can fight it is very crucial for having a successful change that can better the lives of the people. So since we have started, tend to do lots of political education work and also involved in mass action with other organizations that are involved on the ground in Nigeria. We build links across the continent and in diaspora as well, because we believe it's not a struggle specific to one country. We have to understand the imperialist system and work with others within, with other Africans and those fighting imperialism around the world. So we launched the library as part of our aims to basically make available revolutionary literature to the population and to help to provide a platform in which people can engage in discussions, around key issues. So yeah, that's from me. Don't know if Comrade Fatai wants to add one or two things.
Yes, I would actually. Thank you, Comrade Sango, and thank you, OGA, for hosting us. I'm Comrade F, as mentioned, part of the movement of African Emancipation. I'm based in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, but from time to time you try to make my way to Nigeria. But anyway, about the MAE, as mentioned, Revolutionary Pan-Africanist Socialist Organization. Our mission is to, rebrand and recreate a citizen that is wielding political education, class consciousness, and they have the means to analyze the society that they're in and to spread this analysis to others so that, we may come together and bring about a necessary transformation of society. So yeah, that's what MA is about. We're very heavy on political education, very heavy on, engaging the public and works that are designed to either raise the consciousness of the masses or push them into the precipice so they begin to understand why it is they are in the social or material conditions that they're in. Those are some of the goals of the MAE.
Thank you for breaking that down. Over here at the Nigerian scam, I think the name will kind of tickle a lot of people's fancy because we try to expose what the scam, of the arrangement of Nigeria is and what, we've been facing in terms of capitalist arrangements, imperialist arrangement and all that. So one of our subsets of the program or what we do is to also unearth what is left of the left. And what is left of the left in Nigeria would mean us going back to history, looking at the greats, the people that have made impact on the left history of Nigeria, and reconnecting with them, trying to bring them up and make the younger generation know about these people, because it feels like we don't do that much work when it comes to stuff like this. And it's usually, interesting and warms the heart when we see initiatives that bring up, our left history and try to keep it and preserve it for us. I know that the name of the library is Baba Omojola Socialist Memorial Library and a Pan-Africanist Center. So do you want to briefly tell us about who Baba Omojola was and how the library ultimately came into being, like the processes which brought about the fruition of this library?
Yeah, speaking about who Baba Omojola is, speaks to what you were saying about what the left was and is, and somebody who has been active in the left movement, in the socialist movement and revolutionary movement in Nigeria since the late 50s, in terms of the movement against imperialism, where he started, movement against apartheid and French colonialism in Algeria. It's somebody that's been quite active, was also quite interested in archiving, stuff that was going on or what was being written, and also like to keep books and have his own library. So he built a collection of material which he put under a library he called the Frederick Engels Memorial Library. And in fact, in those, a lot of this material that we now have in the Baba Omojola Library, you can see some rich history of the left in Nigeria there. We also will be having just by the way, an online archive that has a lot of quite rich material as well, apart from the books we have in the library. But Baba Omojola was somebody who was involved in so many of the struggles and working with many of the leaders of struggle, like Michael Umudu, who he wrote a biography about, which is known as the Labour Leader #1. Working with Aminu Kano in the People's Redemption Party. There was the Socialist Workers Farmers Party, and other organizations in the later years. Worked with NADECO and Campaign for Democracy and all such organizations in the period of the struggle against military rule. And so this is the person who, when you speak about from the time Nigeria began up till him passing away about 10 years ago, quite involved in the history of the left, with other socialists like Escotoyo or Laoni, and internationally involved with the struggle in, like I said, against apartheid, working with people like Thabo Mbeki, and the struggle against French colonialism in Algeria, and so on. So, yeah, I think the library, we memorialize him, of course, as part of essentially, bringing to learn from the lessons of what those who came before us have done in the struggle, what we can learn from that. And also we make available the kinds of material that people can also learn from, apart from the history of the left in Nigeria, what the left has been doing, which there are many lessons for today, because, like today now we're in a scenario where there's a lot of challenges in terms of being politically active as the left, in terms of a united left being electorally active or politically active, or what are the things we've done in the past, what are the things we can do now, and other aspects of work like that. So that's a short summary.
Thank you very much. Let Emeka come in to ask a question.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Comrade Sango and Comrade F, for your contributions so far, and also making time out for this. I think that this kind of recollection, if I'll call it that, is important. Just to clarify, the digitization process is ongoing physically, but there's, if I hear you correctly, the website, hasn't come on yet. Is that the position with the library as of right now?
The library is up and running. It's physical. It's fully physical. It's located in Ogba, Lagos, with books and another material. So there's also a website where you can access the list of books we have under the Movement for African Emancipation website. You can see the library link. What I was referring to in terms of digitalization, it's a separate process, but related is that there will be an archiving of actual papers of Baba Omojola, not in this case books or things like that, but archives of his papers and what he has worked on throughout his lifetime. So I was just referring to that in terms of the people who would have an opportunity to look at a rich history of the left through that. But that is not ready yet. That is a separate process, but just related to what we are doing. So I hope that's clear. The digitalization we are doing with one of your people in Nigerian scam, but who has been helpful for us in doing that. So, but that's again, it's a separate process. That's not being run by Movement for African Emancipation, but it's going to be available in terms of those who would, be interested in learning more about the history of the left.
All right. I mean, I get that. Yeah, but to be sure, I was speaking about the digitization process more than I was speaking about, MA. But it's okay that you clarified in that regard, because perhaps my next question was going to be, or even my main question was, I get the sense that, the library project is an extension of the work that MA in terms of trying to raise consciousness. Would that be right, to assume this?
So yes, this is the primary thing. Ever since MA started, which was always one of our objectives, to have a center, not necessarily a library, but a center. We feel that this is crucial, having, physical spaces. Of course, the online spaces are important. You have all your, people go to their Twitter spaces and, wherever you have engagements. But in terms of building movements and building resistance, you really need to be on the ground, and you really need to have centers where people can follow activities that are going on. They can, start to engage with others on different topics of the day, and then they can have materials to learn from as well. Learn from history, learn about struggle from other places, principles of struggle, wherever it is. So I would even say more than a library, a center is a more crucial thing. And we always had it as an objective, because as we said, we started off with the objectives of raising consciousness, and so we always intended that I would start to have a physical space where, you can have a draw to people in communities and so on. So the idea of the library more than a center, or library and a center, came about when we had access to Baba Omojola's own library, his own books and materials. And so we thought we could now use those materials and also raise other materials to add to what he has, and then build a center with a library. So it's not just going to be a place in which you come and read books, but also a place in which there will be activities held, there will be discussions, there might be video showings, different kinds of things like that, programs. It could be a place in which those who are, consciously involved in struggle, who want to learn more, can congregate. And we hope that there will be many such centers. It doesn't have to be from MAE, but I think in terms of the struggle in this country, that having such centers in so many places to start to be able to reach more into communities at the grassroots will be very crucial in building the strength of the left in this country.
Going through your profile, I saw you collaborated with a socialist movement from Ghana. I'm sort of curious as to what that entailed, and do you have other links with other organizations in Nigeria, to make the library and this Pan-Africanist center that you mentioned, to make it more robust and have more ideas coming together?
So with regard to the collaboration with Ghana, it was an organization, I want to say they're the Socialist Movement in Ghana. As everyone here knows or should know, finding certain works in Nigeria can be difficult. Like finding works for Kwame Nkrumah, works that talk on Pan-Africanism, socialism, communism, Marxism, etc., etc. It's hard to find something like that. So the Socialist Movement of Ghana offered, pretty much acted as an outlet to get those kinds of works that we can fill in the physical location that we have in Lagos. So that is how that collaboration came about. They were excited to hear that we had a library. We paid for those books. They shipped them over. They actually didn't take time for them to ship those books over. It was actually kind of fast. In just a few days after they confirmed payment, they sent the books over. And in regards to the other organizations, yes, even at the launching library ceremony, there were other Nigerian organizations that were there. They shared their own, congratulatory statements, what they believe could be or should be or ought to be what Nigeria's left should be working towards. So there's many collaborations. There were many organizations there, like Committee for Defense of Human Rights, CD, HR. There was AAC representative there. There was MOP, Movement of the People. There were a number of organizations that we can consider to be left-leaning, left-oriented, so on and so forth. And MAE has actually done a mass work, like Comrade Sango said. They've been at demonstrations, they've been at protests, so on and so forth. Yeah. One other thing that I believe the library could actually function as a means of other organizations that are left leaning or socialist or communist or what have you. It can serve as a focalization point, a centralization point where they can come together. We can collaborate even more, whether it's public outreach with the political education, whether we can collaborate in person, formulate ideas, so on and so forth.
So this project, in any case, would not come to be if not for the support we have had across the continent and diaspora. We've been doing fundraising, and people across, the diaspora have been very helpful there. Of course, it's not something you do as a one organization thing, like the whole process of doing this, we feel is also opportunity to see like-minded organizations who want to achieve the same things, come together and do their own centers as well. So within Nigeria, we had some help as well in getting books from others on the left, like someone called Abiodun Odumusu, who was very helpful, and there are other socialist organizations. And even right now, I'm engaged in discussion with organizations in the UK who have access to the organizations in diaspora and looking at how they can support with, book donations, because these people I'm speaking with are currently involved in a books initiative to send books to Ghana and the Caribbean. And hearing about our own project, they were very happy to want to offer help. So, but I think that, going forward, the center is something like we said at our launch, is something open to others on the left. And it's a place we can also come together as the left and have discussions and put on programs as well.
Thank you. It's also important to hear from you guys what the challenges might have been, or registering the library. I'm assuming there's a sort of registration process that went in, and then getting it set up, all the challenges, obstacles you had to face, because we just did a recording with people that are doing digitization and also sort of library, and what they said was you registering with the name Socialist Library of Nigeria, or SOLA, they called it SOLA, and they had a pushback from the, I think, CSC or the government. Emeka can clarify this. They didn't want socialist or anything to be with Nigeria in the name and the registration. Was there any sort of institutional or state pushback or any form of obstacle, pushing back against the socialist agenda and this library that's been set up? Was there any sort of obstacle like that?
Well, it depends on what you want to register or what you want to get. I think if it is a case of there's nobody's stopping you from registering anything like this. You're not required to register that you have a library, I'm not sure what context of that, but I can relate to it more in the level of maybe getting access to funding or other sorts of support that you would want. Yes, and there will be challenges around that. Our main challenge has been in that area, of course, and we continue to be in that area. In this day and age now, you have a lot of this kind of NGO kind of things and people trying to raise funds for some good causes. I've seen this happen with NSAS, where there are NGOs out there at the global level who say, yes, they want to support people who are being affected by the NSAS or the aftermath of it. But when some of us went to some of these organizations, they would have nothing to do with you if they see any sign of radicalism or anything such like that. So you wouldn't, it's kind of like until you kind of rebrand yourself at that kind of level, then you see some kind of support. But we are not relying on that. We are going to keep what we have as what it is, of course. And I know Solar as well, and that's what Solar is going to continue to play as Socialist Library. And we're actually working with them actually on the archive we spoke about before. But in terms of the library itself, the challenge is being able to finance it. I mean, really, number one, there are two major challenges. The issue of being able to finance it, and that's excluding from getting sources of official sources. Yes, I mean, we have spoken to people like there are NGO types within the left. I wouldn't want to mention names who have indicated some interest in supporting. And maybe it might come a point when you have those kind of issues about socialism or whatever else. But we haven't got there, and they're not concerned about that per se, because the main thing is funding from those within the revolutionary circles, within the socialist circles. And we have got quite a bit of support, but of course it's not enough. And, we have to deal with the Nigerian situation where when we are about to launch, the price of everything, went through the roof. So it's not easy running a physical place currently in Nigeria. You can imagine with the price of electricity or other things, talk less of books now. We spoke earlier about getting books. We couldn't get quite a few Pan-Africanist books from Nigeria, which is why we had to, go to socialist movement of Ghana, because those kind of books you're more likely to find in Ghana than in Nigeria. So even sourcing books is an issue. And of course, getting the finance to get those books is an issue. The second challenge with this kind of thing is getting it known and getting people to be aware of it and to come to it. So that also costs money, because you have to publicize it, take it far and wide. And yes, certainly, having it as a socialist library, there are people you could reach, like students, young people, or even schools where they will want to have a library they could go to, but at the level of the school administrations now, when they see something like a socialist library, they would be inclined to not work with you, right? So you have such challenges at the kind of level, that kind of official level, certainly in being able to popularize it. But it is what it is. You have to, it's built as a socialist Pan-Africanist library and center, and we will accept those challenges, but keep the essence of what we are doing.
That's interesting, at least, to know how things run. I don't know if Emeka wants to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually excited about the project of digitization of left archives, as we've come to learn, that they exist. And part of my excitement usually stems from the fact that, over the course of being engaged in the production of the podcast, part of what my own realization is, and I might be speaking for the rest of the crew, is that there's a younger generation of Nigerian, socialists or communists, or essentially, in very broad terms, radicals whose greatest challenge is access to materials. And I'm saying stuff that should be as basic as papers written by radical thinkers. And then, of course, personally, my own investment with archives beyond books, houses, in terms of correspondences, minutes of meetings, communiques, newspaper clippings, stuff like that. Materials that help you understand movements, as they were formed. An extension of that is also the fact that I think that, this is personal. One of my own biggest critiques of the old left, if you like, is that they didn't quite build. I'm not going to lay the charge that they didn't build the institutions, but they didn't quite build institutions that lasted. And that perhaps also explains why, access to some of these materials is a major challenge. And it's usually a major challenge for young millennials who are coming into the movement, who identify with the radical left. So in that wise, I was wondering, if you could give us, in terms of the materials itself, the way that Baba Omojola then, gathered them into these archives, what kind of time span are we looking at? Are we looking at, his work and engagement with the left from the 50s, when he actually joined the movement, or are there things that we can, so if I was researching and I wanted to go into that archive to do research, what time frame would I be looking at in terms of getting? I know you mentioned Campaign for Democracy, which seems to be sometime around the early noughties. So I mean, that kind of sense, I think, is something that some of our young listeners would, really appreciate, getting a measure of.
There's material there from the early 60s to the noughties, I should say. So I think it covers, like, I think, I said before, it covers much of the activity of, the left in terms of, or even, generally in Nigerian history as well. I mentioned the Socialist Workers and Farmers Party, the PRP, I think I can't try to remember what the organizations from that time period, but yes, it covers quite a wide time span. It might not be so detailed, not a lot of material for certain periods, but overall covers a wide range of stuff. So we have, some manifestos of political parties, some, interactions between key players and, stuff like that. So.
All right, and these parts of the archives, this bit that we just talked about, that from the 60s up until the noughties, is something that we're going to have access to, when the online portal becomes active.
Yes, certainly.
All right.
I was going to ask, just by way of capping it up, what's been the general reception of the library in general? Like, have you received a lot of people visiting, people checking it out? What's just been the reception generally to it, online, physically, on the ground?
Well, with regard to online, I can answer and say that we received a number of, congratulatory responses or remarks from people and organizations, whether they're based on the continent of Africa or from the diaspora. The question always comes up, what is the next move? What will happen next? What is needed? Or can you compile a list of things the MAE, the library will need? So there's been a lot of positive feedback and remarks with regard to the online presence. People are very, very excited that Nigeria has, rather specifically in Lagos, there's a space where people can actually congregate for types of, political discourse, class consciousness, et cetera, et cetera. The reception has been very, very great with regard to the online presence and personalities.
That's nice. To wrap it up, can we, know where to look out for you guys online? If you can drop the address, of course, which if you put a website, we can link it in the show, the address, online handle, Twitter, social media page, all that. And then, knowing that it's a work in progress, we expect to see and hear more from the library and, of course, link to people and, just collaborate more. That's it. So if you can let us know where to find you on the website, since we talked about archiving and things like that, so to help people go in the right direction.
Yeah, so Movement for African Emancipation.org. If you're there, you can go to the library section. Right now, you see the list of books we have. I think with time, we'll probably have join. You could join or be a member of the library, and you could also donate to the library. And you find us on other social media, Movement for African Emancipation. I think Arise number 4 of Figure 4, Freedom.
That's on Twitter.
Yeah. And Movement for African Emancipation on something like that. Basically, I'm say it exactly on Instagram and Facebook. And like I said, the library physically is in Ogba, Lagos, Yaya Abattoir Road in Ogba, Lagos. And I'd like to, also going back to your previous question, that we do need, like I said before, to popularize the library, and for your listeners out there to be aware of it, to share the word, in your circles, will be very helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll be looking forward to hearing from, the library scene. You'll be dropping in, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So just be on the lookout for Mecca at the library. Maybe you can also say for a place where, some episodes or, interviews might be recorded, something like that in the future. Yeah, it's been great to have Movement for African Emancipation here. It's been wonderful to talk about the library. We hope it's going to, enlighten and broaden consciousness for everyone. And yeah, we'll link to the handle on our page and talk and spread it to everyone we know. Thank you very much for coming. It's been wonderful having you guys on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.